Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining JINSA for an emergency briefing. As I'm sure many of you know, there was a tragic Hezbollah attack on Saturday evening Israel time in the Druze village of Majdal Shams that killed a dozen young people, 10 of them children, and has raised the risks of a greater conflict and escalation in what has been thus far an over 9 month long low intensity conflict between Israel and Hezbollah in the north. To discuss what happened and the strategic implications, I'm pleased to be joined by JINSA Senior Fellow and former Israeli Air Force Commander General Amikam Norkin. We're also scheduled to be joined by General Yaakov Amador, and JINSA Senior Fellow and former National Security Advisor. He'll hopefully tune in as soon as he's able. But let me start first by asking you, General Norkin, what can you tell us about the attack, about the munition that was used, and why this strike was successful when so many others have been intercepted by Israeli air defenses?
Well, thank you, Blaise. As you mentioned, it's a tragic event, especially once we are speaking about children. This village, Majdal Shams, is the northest village in the Golan Heights. So it's almost the north point in our nation, and it's very hard to defend uh, uh, assets, villages, camps that they are so close to the border. The Iron Dome got less time to detect the rocket and intercept the rockets once the rocket is aiming to such a very close target to the border. So this is the reason that the siren usually to those villages is a very short alert, and interception procedure is very complicated. So the percentage of the rockets that the Iron Dome can intercept in those areas is a little bit lower than the normal. Second, because Majdal Shams is so close to the border, Hezbollah can collect a lot of intelligence about those areas. And since the last few months, they start to launch suicide drones, UAVs, and rockets toward the Golan Heights. And I can say that at the tactical level, they use this area for respond after the Israeli activities. In this area, at the Golan Heights, there is less population, and by that, from the Hezbollah perspective, they might risk less citizens, and they are aiming to the military bases. But this is not the case. In this case, it's look like after the IDF killed 4 advanced soldiers or terrorists, they respond against citizens directly into the center of the village and into the soccer game. Once there is a soccer game, and the results are very tragic results. So this is the reason that they launch a lot of rockets to the Golan Heights, and it's very difficult to intercept them because of the geometric situation near the border.
What do we know about the type of munition that Hezbollah used in this attack? Was it something that they use regularly? Was it a new type of weapon?
Well, Hezbollah got a lot of let's say, short, medium, long-range rocket with different warheads, light, medium, and heavy warheads. And this specific rocket, it was a medium range, short, medium range with, let's say, medium warhead, uh, around 40 or 50 kilograms, which can do a lot of damage, especially once against people that they are not hiding in a shelter. Those rockets cannot penetrate into shelters. They cannot penetrate the concrete, but they can kill people and do a lot of damage to equipment out of the shelter.
I guess what I'd like to ask whether we know if this was an intentional escalation by Hezbollah or just a lucky strike. I mean, we've seen in the past that they have launched as many as 200 rockets at a time. I think the barrage on Saturday was smaller than that. It was reported to be about 30 rockets. So can we assess whether they think they were escalating,
I think
or
I
did they
think
just get lucky?
I think it's not a precise weapon, so it's a statistic weapon, but still for a short range, for short distances, once you launch those rockets into the center of the village, once you know that there is a soccer game and hundreds of people are playing and sitting there, so I think that the Hezbollah unit that decided to do it, she want to kill people. She want to kill Israeli citizens.
Hezbollah, of course, has said that it's not responsible for this attack, that it instead attacked it's a military base on Mount Hermon. I assume Israeli intelligence has strong reason to believe otherwise.
Well, I think that this is not the most important thing if it's the way that they describe it. The results are the most important thing. And once you're launching rockets into a civilian area, territory, into the villages, uh, and it's completely different than launching those missiles to the villages that the citizens evacuate and went out. They know that Majdal Shams, they are there. They know everything. So we should estimate that they want to kill as many people as they can.
And why isn't Majdal Shams evacuated when so many other communities near the border have been?
Well, we didn't evacuate villages in the Golan Heights. Uh, this is the government decision. I think it's the right decision, although there is some risks. But uh, this is not. This is the decision that the North Command, the IDF, and the government took many months ago.
And can you tell us a little more about the Druze community that this village was a part of, and their service in the IDF and the Air Force?
Yeah. Well, the Druze are very committed to the Israel national security from day one. As the Air Force commander in the Israeli Air Force, we have pilots, Druze pilots, uh, Druze engineers all over, special forces. I nominate for the first time the special forces, the Israeli Air Force Special Forces unit. The commander was a Druze. Our D-level maintenance unit in the Air Force, the highest engineer, Colonel Druze, and many others. And of course, all over the IDF, there are Druze soldiers and officers. And also in this war, the Druze community lost many soldiers, warriors, commanders, and they are part of the group that defend the state of Israel. Although Majdal Shams is a little bit different because the Druze community in the Golan Heights prefer in the past to uh, keep some of the relations with the Syrian regime. But today the relations are very warm, and personally, I know them all. I have a very good relations with the Druze leadership, and I believe that the state of Israel should support the Druze community like any other Israeli citizen.
So what would that support look like now? I mean, we've had lots of conversations in our regular webinars about the threat in the north. General Amador has sort of talked about how both sides are playing by the rules of the game, that there are rules of the games where both sides are following them. Both sides are trying to stay under the threshold, sort of maintain a low intensity conflict, but without it boiling over into full scale war.
Yeah.
Was this a violation of those rules?
Well, at the tactical level, yes. At the strategic level, no, because we are fighting with Hezbollah at the same level for 9 months, and every day something might happen. And unfortunately, we lost 12 children, but it's not a strategic change. It's a tactical issue, and we should respond. And I hope that the government will decide, and the IDF by the Air Force will act at the right level, while we are looking always at the strategic goals, the strategic interest of the state of Israel. But the support is not just the military reaction. The support is also at the civilian level. The Druze need more support from the government in many aspects in let's say, the civilian life in the Druze villages and cities. And this is something that the Druze community deal with the government, especially with this government, for more than a year.
Well, we certainly hope they receive the support they need. On this distinction between a tactical and a strategic violation of the rules, what would amount to a strategic violation? What are sort of the concerns of a type of escalation that would be strategic?
Well, once Hezbollah might launch rockets toward our biggest cities in the north, like Haifa, Tiberia, or others, or maybe to the center of Israel, it might be a strategic change. But till then, all the Hezbollah activities with the drones and with the rockets are still at the same level, same distances. But we cannot accept that he knows that there is a lot of people at the soccer field and he is launching rocket. Although it's a tactical level, we cannot accept it.
So even the increase in the number of munitions that Hezbollah is firing daily, and I think our JINSA's projectile tracker says it's been something like a 50% increase in the last 2 months since earlier in the war, that by itself isn't a strategic threat yet.
Not yet. Why? Because we usually count what Hezbollah do, how many rockets Hezbollah launch. We speak less, so we don't know because the IDF keep this data out of the media, what the Air Force strikes do to Hezbollah, how large is the damage at the Lebanon side, how many operational assets, operational capabilities Hezbollah already lost in the last 9 months. And I think that Nasrallah is every morning look at this terror organization and understand that he get is get less and less capabilities. Although he can attack Israel every day, but near the border, he lost most of his operational capabilities. He lost some of his air defense systems, which are strategic assets for him, and many others. And the damage at the Lebanon side is much, much higher than the damage in the Israeli side. Although we understand that we still didn't achieve the level of tactical achievement that it becomes a strategic achievement. And this is the asymmetric situation that we do a lot, but once we took out all the citizens, tens of thousands of people out of their houses, this is the main issue now in the northern border. But back to your question, Blaise, yes, they launched more rockets, but they lost many of their commanders. The main commanders, we know those people for 15, 20 years. They manage all the terror activities in the Israeli border in the last 15 years, and they lost them. And they lost a lot of capabilities in infrastructures. And we don't present it because of the IDF reasons. I don't want to speak about it, but I think that we still keep the same level of violence between us.
But if the level of violence stays the same, if Israel keeps playing by the same rules, even if it's inflicting heavy losses on Hezbollah, and I think the recent reporting is something like over 350 Hezbollah commanders and troops have been killed. But so far that hasn't deterred Hezbollah or caused it to stop its attacks. So if the Israeli response is more of what it has already been doing, that seems unlikely to actually change Hezbollah's actions or get these attacks to stop.
Agreed.
So even if this wasn't if this was only a strategic escalation, if this was a tactical escalation, not a strategic one, a tactical response isn't going to change the strategic situation.
Well, I think that the IDF is going to respond. So in the next few days, I think that we are going to see more activities from both sides. But we should look at our strategic goal. And right now, we need to finish and to solve the situation at the south in Gaza, because we already destroy the Hamas military capabilities. There is no military organization threat in Gaza. There is terror activities, and we need to bring home most of the hostages, and then to take the strategic decision if the better way to bring home the northern citizens is by a war or by a political agreement. From day to day, we are moving toward military activities and less toward diplomatic agreement. But I think that the decision should be taken at the day once we got a ceasefire in Gaza. This is, from my perspective, the best way for Israel.
So for now, in the north, the best Israel can do is manage the conflict, and ultimately the road to a strategic resolution in the north has to pass through the south first.
Yes, it didn't change in the last few months, but I think that we should respond. So we are going to attack more targets. There are more important ones, but I'm not sure that we are going to move for a full-scale war. In the next few days, we are going to see those activities, and we're going to understand what is going to happen. But what you are planning, it always might be changed by one rocket that fell in the wrong place, or one bomb from an Israeli fighter that killed a lot of people in Hezbollah, like happened in the past.
I have one more question I wanted to ask you, General Norkin, and then I'll open it up to the audience for any questions that they have. So if you're watching and you want to pose a question to General Norkin, please feel free to type it into using the Q&A feature in Zoom, and then I'll read it out and pose it to General Norkin. But first, let me ask you, somewhat relatedly, there were reports over the weekend of Hezbollah acquiring or being given by Iran an electric magnetic pulse capability, an EMP weapon. Can you tell us, at least generally, about what an EMP weapon is and what its effects on the battlefield would be if Hezbollah had one and used it?
Well, I didn't read those reports, but the IDF is acting in the last 10 years or more to avoid strategic weapons from Hezbollah. And the Iranian regime is trying to push into the Middle East, into Lebanon, Syria, through the ground transportation or through the sea or the air. A lot of weapon capabilities, drones, missiles, anti-tank missiles, and others. So I'm sure that the IDF is do its best to avoid any strategic weapon from Hezbollah. And of course, once you are dealing with EMP, which is completely different level of threat, it's a top priority for us.
All right, I'll turn to questions from the audience now. Greg Lerner asks,
Maybe Blaise,
yeah,
before the question,
sure.
We should look how complicated the situation in Israel now. We
Sure.
all listened to the Prime Minister speech in the Congress, and since then, just in the short few days, we lost 12 children, and today a group of people with parliament member try to penetrate to military base where we are keeping the Hamas terrorists. It's something that it's a very important event that I think it's a very negative act, and general inspector for the police, retired last week, and the new one declared that he is not going to enter to his position. So, from many different aspects, the situation in Israel, the society in Israel is under a combination of a military threat, unstable political situation, and this, all those together uh, make a lot of stress over the Israeli citizens, unfortunately.
Uh, as if Israel didn't have enough to contend
Yeah,
with right now.
absolutely.
Um, so returning to this question, which is about a long article that appeared in the New Yorker last week, written by Dexter Filkins, who is, I think, one of the leading war correspondents of the last generation. It was about the Northern War, about the potential for an Israel-Hezbollah war. And the question is, the article references Israeli leadership preferring to continue to deal with Nasrallah over the uncertainty of who would replace him. Do you agree? And might the events of this past weekend have changed this? And I'll point out, I have the quote here. It's an assessment in the article by an American official, Ryan Crocker, who's the former U.S. ambassador to Lebanon, and he says in the article, by most accounts, Israel's leaders have not tried to kill Nasrallah. I think if the Israelis had wanted to kill him, they would have. He's the devil they know. So I guess first of all, is that an accurate assessment of how Israel approaches Nasrallah, and if so, is it the right way?
Yeah. Well, we are still waiting to learn from the intelligence what happened to Muhammad Def. Uh, but all the enemy's leadership, they are under threat. And we should take the right decision at the right time. So this is not a matter of if we can or cannot. It's the matter of what is the right thing to do. And we cannot. I think that right now Israel is holding many balls at the air at the same time. We didn't mention the attack in Yemen. After 9 months, the Air Force attacked at a distance of almost 2,000 kilometers from Israel with a quite massive and quite uh, uh, big effect over the Yemen port. Personally, I know this port since the Karin A, 2002. I were there with my F-15 squadron. We got some intelligence. We bring intelligence for the Navy, and we all remember the Karin A. But to act in Yemen, in Syria, in Lebanon, in Judea and Samaria, in Gaza, 24/7. It's a complicated situation for the IDF. And I completely agree with the declaration of the Prime Minister that we are fighting the Western world war and we should manage our steps. And this is not usually the right thing to do. If you can do something, you should do it. No, if you can do something, it's good, but you should do it once it's the right time to do it. So this is my answer about, when we should attack each of those leaders.
Uh, One of the other things that Prime Minister Netanyahu said in speaking to Congress is that not only is Israel fighting the Western world's war, but if Israel wins, we, the West, win as well. I guess to that point, General Charles Moore, who was just with us in Israel a month ago for the Generals and Admirals program, asks, is the U.S. now giving you all that you need to fight in Gaza and in the north? Certainly something that we heard a lot about in Israel a month ago was how much the slowdown and pause in U.S. weapons deliveries was of concern to the IDF. Has that changed at all?
Well, first of all, I would like to say thank you very much again to the generals and admirals that came to Israel and learned the situation and support us with this specific visit. Prime Minister Netanyahu also, in his speech, asked for a faster support, and I think that we appreciate a lot the American support, but we still have some gaps that we need them at the shortest time to be in Israel.
A bit of a change in topic, but we've had several questions about the statements recently by President Erdogan in Turkey, threatening to invade Israel and providing Hamas Hezbollah with support. What do you make of those, and sort of how do you see Turkish involvement or position during this war?
Well, it's unbelievable. It's very hard to estimate what Erdogan is going to declare in his next speech. Every speech is more negative attitude toward Israel. I think that we should hear the international community, the European community respond for those negative declarations. And at the military aspect, we should look at this front and be aware, because we shouldn't be surprised if something might happen. I think the way to do such military activities from the Turkish side, there is a way. It's not in the near future, but we should learn very carefully what are the Turkish goals.
Could Turkey complicate Israel's decision about how and when to respond to the latest Hezbollah attack? Could they be a factor
Well,
in Lebanon?
they might complicate the freedom of action because we are flying above the Mediterranean, and if the Turkish airplanes are going to fly also near Lebanon, it might be more complicated for the Israeli Air Force.
We have another question from one of our recent GNA participants, Admiral Paul Becker. He's asking you to step out of the plane and into the boat, but asking if there are expanded IDF operations in southern Lebanon, would they involve a greater combat role for the IDF Navy?
Well, I'm sure that they are, but the Zoom is not the best platform to speak about
it. Fair enough. Why don't we wrap up? But let me ask you before we finish, General Norkin, sort of what will you be looking for in the next couple of days to assess how this situation develops and whether it escalates further or sort of stays on the current course? What should we be looking for?
Well, my estimation is that we are going to see some, let's say, more activities in strongest air attacks. The targets are maybe going to be different targets, different areas, different capacity. And of course, Hezbollah might respond. And so the next week is going to be a very sensitive period of time. And I think that the Israeli interest right now is not to move for a full scale in this specific time. So we should carefully choose the targets and keep reducing the military capabilities, Hezbollah military capabilities, and we shouldn't aim our ammunition toward the Lebanon citizens. And
Well, thank you.
thank you again, Blaise, and thank you for all the participants that are supporting Israel all over the year and specific in this war. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your insights, General. Thank you for joining us. Thanks to everyone who tuned in. As always, please be sure to check out all our latest analysis on jinsa.org. And look forward to seeing you on the next webinar. Thank you and
Bye-bye.
have a good day.